Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Troublemaker Training. My name is Julie Collins. I am the national organizer for Red, Wine, and Blue. I have Julie Womack here. We are the two Julies.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I appreciate, I see some familiar faces and new names, so I'm excited to have you all here. What we're going to do is I'm going to share a screen and we're going to go through this training. We're going to talk a little bit about how to organize in your community, because if you want to go and fight book bans, you need to have people with you. So we're going to talk about how to organize. And then I'm really excited to have two women here who are doing this work on the ground, and they're going to share their stories with you. So I have Ellen here from North Carolina, and Amanda, who is in Pennsylvania doing this work in her own area and also as an organizer for Red, Wine, and Blue. Amanda just said, as we got in, that this is her 1-year anniversary of her first time going to a Troublemaker training, which got her doing this work in her community, which led her to becoming an organizer with us. So look what can happen when you come to a Troublemaker training. So we'll have Amanda expound upon that as we get into it. All right, so I want to say welcome. We call this our Troublemaker training because I have a local group myself that we organized after 2016. We started showing up at city council and school board meetings, and it wasn't very well received by some of the members of our councils because all of a sudden people were actually pushing back on them. And so they literally called us troublemakers. So we are wearing that as a badge of honor and hoping to turn all of you into troublemakers in your community. And we just mean by that bringing change and common sense back to your community. So we know that we just keep seeing new tactics coming out from the right-wing extremists. Okay, so we started with like anti-masking, anti-COVID protocols, went into this, push against CRT, and then book bans, and now we're seeing attacks on sex education and social emotional learning, and obviously attacks on LGBTQ plus students. So it's kind of a never-ending cycle, and it's not going to ever end. There's always going to be something new, because this is how they get people riled up and ready to vote. And it's a very planned and coordinated effort. So what we want to focus on tonight is how do you effectively organize in your community and fight back against these right-wing efforts. Before I start, I always want to say and just shout this out. Women especially tend to question their abilities, right? We always kind of feel like we need to have a PhD in a topic before we are like worthy to discuss it. So it stops a lot of people from trying to like do good and take action in their community. And I just want to shout out and say, you can do this. You do not have to worry if you don't know about every policy or what's going on every issue. Just caring and wanting to make a difference in using your voice is the impact that you need. And I also guarantee you won't be doing it for long. If you start something, other people will join in and will help you with it. Okay, and that really leads into our first slide, which is build it and they will come. What do I mean by this? Don't be overwhelmed. You might live in a really rural community or a really red community. My community is moving toward purple, but it's still pretty red where I live. And we all felt very, very alone after the 2016 election. Well, someone I know started a Facebook group, and there was like 12 people to start, and now we have over 700. The national Facebook group for Red, Wine, and Blue, called Sweep, that Julie mentioned, was started by a woman in Kentucky on a whim when she got mad that Trump was tweeting about suburban housewives, started a group called Suburban Housewives Against Trump. I think she added like 20 people to it. There are 220,000 women in there now. So just to point out that it doesn't matter who you know, start with who you know. If it's 3 people, that's great, add them. Whoever. People know people, they will keep adding, it will grow organically. You will be surprised. I have never met a single person who's gone through this training, started something, who didn't come back to me and go, oh my gosh, it grew so rapidly. I was so surprised. What do you need to do to build a group? How do you bring people together in your community to stand up for the values that you believe in? So the first step is obviously communication. If you're going to bring people together, you have to have a way to talk with them, to chat, let them know what's going on. There are a lot of ways you can do this. And so you just really need to think through what is best for you. What do you think will work best in your community? We all have a love-hate relationship with Facebook, but Facebook is actually a pretty good place to build community and to do this kind of work. Number one, It's like 70% of the population is on Facebook. So a lot of people, are on Facebook. So it's a very low barrier to entry. You form a group. All people have to do is click join and they are in it. They don't have to go to a meeting. They don't have to attend an event. And you can quickly build community in a group because people will see the same names over and over again. You can post and comment and engage and talk with each other. Also, it's private and you can really screen and control who comes into it. But maybe you're not a Facebook person and that the idea of doing that just completely is like, nope, not going to happen. I have met people, I've got some women in Nevada actually who live in a retirement community, and they just don't like social media. So they use email, they just do an email distribution list and that works for them. But in this day and age too, there's things like WhatsApp, Slack, Signal, there are lots of communication apps you can use to also form. So it's really just kind of a decision as to what works best for you. And if you start it and an app's not working, you can always reevaluate the Facebook or something of that nature. The next thing you need to think about before you get started is establishing your parameters and your focus. And what I mean by that is, are you just going to be doing things in your local community? So you're limiting membership to people who live in your community, or is it just your school district? Or are you trying to do things county-wide? Is this group open to anybody of any political persuasion? Or do you want it to just be a certain party? Or do you want it to just be women? Do you want kids? Like, you really kind of want to think through who is going to be in this group. And if you don't set those parameters before you start, your group might quickly grow out of control and lose focus. Where I live, we personally have a group that we restrict only to our city because we want to deal with our city issues. And I have people come to me all the time wanting to invite their sister who lives 2 counties over, or their mom who lives in Cleveland. And I'm like, no, this group is for local issues. And if we let more people in, we're going to start talking about other school districts and, other city councils. We want to focus on what we're doing. And so it's really important just to decide what is your focus, and stick to it, even if people ask or try to push limits, because they will, I promise. And then make it social. Cannot emphasize enough that it's important to make this social, because that is why people come back. That is why they stay involved, because they build relationships. They make friends within the group. We actually started Red Wine and Blue. One of the reasons it's called Red Wine and Blue is because Katie Paris, who founded it, was traveling around the state of Ohio, meeting with women who'd started grassroots groups after 2016. And all of them have the same story. I got together with friends over a glass of wine to commiserate, and we decided we had to do something. And so really it's that the wine's kind of the metaphor for the social aspect of this, is that we need to get together and do this work, but we also have to have fun doing it, because that is why people will come back. So if you can meet in person, awesome, because you can build those relationships. Whether it's going to a school board meeting and then going out afterwards to have happy hour, anything you can do to kind of build up those relationships in planning and in action. But I also know that, COVID's not gone, people get the flu, things happen. So yes, you can still be social and do things over, over virtual, over Zoom. Maybe meet a half hour early and have a little online happy hour so people can meet and chat. Do an icebreaker so people can introduce themselves and get to know each other. Celebrate accomplishments. If someone wrote, a kick-ass letter to the school board and got a big response, or they made an amazing speech or organized something, definitely shout that out, call that out at meetings. And then the last thing is to delegate. And this is really important, because I know a lot of us who do this stuff are kind of type A personalities, and we want to kind of control everything that's going on, but that's not how people stay involved. Okay. They stay involved because they feel like they're contributing. So when you have an action that you're going to take, maybe it's to have a rally or to show up at a school board meeting, make a list of all the things you need to accomplish to have that be a successful event, and then delegate those things out to people. Give them a task to do. Don't be afraid to ask. Okay. That is one of the biggest lessons that I have learned working for Red Wine and Blue. I used to feel like I was imposing on people when I asked them to do something. And what I found was that people are flattered to be asked. Who doesn't want to hear, I think you'd be great at this. You would be amazing doing this. I would really appreciate your help. And they may not be able to every time, but ask again. That is why they stay involved, is when they see, like I said, they're making a contribution. And also, identify people's skill sets. I have also heard over and over again how amazing it is that these groups come together and someone's a graphic designer, someone's an accountant, they can do finance, someone is an amazing social media person. Everybody has these talents that they bring. So find those talents and utilize them. All right, I am going to stop screen share right now, and we are going to jump over and interview our two amazing women who are doing this work right now. So first, I'm going to bring up Julie Collins to talk to Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
So let's talk about what started, I guess, last spring.
Yeah, last spring, our school board initiated a committee to build a new policy around book banning or reviewing books that are in schools. And it was basically everything you see in the news about allowing parents to ask for books to be removed, allowing random people in the community, not even connected to the schools, to ask for books to be removed. So over the summer, they started posting out these Facebook posts about these committee meetings. So I saw it and it ticked me off and I was like, what the heck is happening? So I dragged my neighbor and my friend and we went and watched one of these committee meetings, and it was exactly what we thought it was going to be, very right-wing Moms for Liberty type policy was being written. And that kind of just started it all. We met a couple school board candidates that meeting. That night, we went out for drinks after the meeting and we decided to make a Facebook group. We started writing letters, just the three of us, eventually to the school board. We didn't get very many responses. So eventually we started writing letters with more people. We started out just texting friends that we knew were like-minded, getting them to sign on these letters. And, we weren't getting any responses. But lo and behold, we show up at a school board meeting about a month later, and the first topic on their agenda was addressing our letter, because they said it didn't matter. We were a small population, but yet they had the legal counsel address our letter directly to the whole county at the school board meeting. And eventually me and my neighbor, we busted our way onto this committee after we annoyed the chair of the school board enough. And we helped rewrite the policy with another woman that we met who was already on the committee, who was very like-minded and is now a good friend. To be a little bit more fair, yes, the policy still exists. Yes, there still is a process for reviewing books, but we considered the policy ended up being a lot more fair than how it started out. And we also got the Moms for Liberty chair of the committee removed from the committee. So that was a big win for us.
That's a huge win. So how did you organize folks? Did you use social media or?
Yeah, first we had a Facebook group. We kind of just invited our friends who we knew were like-minded. It slowly grew as we started sending out this letter we were asking people to sign on to. We asked, we said, hey, you can join our group if you're curious about what we're working on. I know you mentioned that some people aren't on Facebook. So when we had people sign our letter, we did a Google form where we collected emails. So then we were able to email that whole group, which ended up being about like 350 people. And we were able to send out a mass email with new letters that we were writing, asking them to sign on. We could also direct them to our Facebook page. And also when we sent out those emails, some of those emails got forwarded to the media, which was great because we got in the Charlotte Observer. We made the homepage of the Charlotte Observer website when we spoke at the meetings, just because we were reaching out via Facebook and letters.
Eventually, I know you had, about 300 people? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, we had about 300 people sign on to our last letter that we wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just really made the school board realize that people were out there that cared about this policy, and it wasn't just parents wanting to ban books. You can't just come in and sweep this through. There's people in the county that care, people in the county that don't want book bans. And at that point, prior to elections, our school board was very conservative. So that, we had to fight against that.
So have folks tried to use the policy to get books banned since it's been created?
So we have heard that we have a couple moles in our local Moms for Liberty group that report back to us. And we have heard that they have started some sort of private group where they're trying to submit 35 books that they want removed from all the schools. So far, we have not seen anything come through. We've been monitoring we still go to school board meetings. We still have people at the school board meetings. We've been monitoring the list. One of the things that we got in the policy that was not initially on the policy was publishing a list of all books that the school boards are reviewing or that the committees are reviewing. And so now we're able to see what books are being reviewed. Before they were not planning to publish what books were going to be removed or what books they were reviewing, which was a huge issue for us. We wanted to see, what topics are being targeted, whether it's LGBTQ or race issues. We want to know what people are submitting to have removed from the schools.
The one question that I always ask everybody when I interview them is, so were you an activist before all of this started?
No, not really. I mean, I've always been very liberal leaning and, into politics and, keeping up on what's happening, but I've never jumped in like this before. And I feel like I kind of just fell into it accidentally, but I think it's been good.
I always ask that question because, we're teaching folks to be troublemakers in this training. And, and most of the folks that we have come on here weren't doing this kind of work before they, started coming up against these folks in their school districts. And so I just want to show folks that, you can do this. You don't have to have some kind of prior, training in order to make that happen.
No training. And I will say that, we met Kim Biondi through some Facebook connections, and she pointed us to Red, White, and Blue. And we did use your guys' guide on how to talk to school board members, how to make speeches for the school board, how to behave. Yeah, and that was very helpful because again, we were just 3 people, we're all parents, but we didn't have any training. We hadn't done anything like this before, so we did rely on publishings that were out there like that.
All right. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else you want to share before we turn it back over to Julie?
There's people out there that see this type of stuff coming up in their districts. Don't be afraid to fight it. I was nervous about going up against people, Moms for Liberty. They are kind of scary. But don't be nervous because there are people in your community that think the same things that you think.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Hi, Amanda. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Happy anniversary to you too, I guess.
I guess it's our anniversary. We must have met a year ago online. So
yeah.
What made you come to a Troublemaker training a year ago and then now become a rock star organizer? But tell us what got you started with all of this.
Started the same way. It starts, I believe, probably everywhere with mass debates and CRT. And we were feeling really outnumbered. And I was just taking notes when Ellen was speaking. And I remember thinking, why isn't anyone doing anything? And not realizing I'm the someone that has to do something. And it was just so frustrating to see. And everyone was yelling about it on social media, but no one was we weren't attending board meetings. We were afraid, we were outnumbered. We also live near the Rod of Iron, which is an extremely dangerous group that was coming to our board meetings, and we were afraid for our own safety. And we just were giving up. We had lost the battles with masks. And then a friend of mine sent me the article from Red, White, and Blue in the Washington Post. And we looked them up on Facebook, and I sent it to a friend of mine and we met on social. At this point, we had never met in person. I reached out to her because I saw her on social media, being this is bizarre. And I was look at this. So we saw that you guys were having a book ban training. We are this same call 1 year ago. And we joined. We took such strategic notes. It's so funny to look back on. And we printed the parents' playbook and we had it in a binder. We had no idea what we were doing. That morning, we were all right, we're just going to do it. We're just going to start a Facebook page. Then right after the next day. And it was us 3. It was 3 of us. And we were so what do we do now? We start going through the parents' playbook. and we start adding our friends who are like-minded. Then we start reaching out to the people on social media who we might not know, but we see they're also like-minded, and we ask them to join our group. And then we start letters to the editor right away, because that's was in the parents' playbook, like, to, we can have someone write letters to the editor, but we didn't know how. So we had someone show us how. We found people to write letters to the school board. We arranged to have us go to the school board meetings. We had someone look up school board policy, which we were so unfamiliar with. And this was so new to all of us at the time. And what was really important to us was there was 8 books they wanted banned that directly affected the most marginalized community in our county. We're also a county that's 89% white. And it was important that we made these books accessible to kids. No matter, we didn't feel like we had a shot anyway, but how could we get kids who wanted these books, those books? So we started an Amazon wish list. We donated all the books we received to our local LGBTQ plus library. They have a small library in their group. And then we started to really focus on messaging. And we knew we wanted a message everyone could get behind. And that was that while they were attacking books, they were attacking our teachers and our staff and our administration, and we love them. It's a small community. They coach our kids. They're teachers, and in their plays, like, they're part of our community. And our message was clear. We are going to support all staff, all students, and all teachers. And what does that look like? So then we started to come up with ideas on how we would support our students. What does that look like to them? And that meant going to their plays, going to their football games, going to school festivals. I don't know, I think most board meetings that I've watched, being part of the Red, White, and Blue team now, start the same, where they have kids introduce like some things going on in the school. We would email the teacher and be like, hey, this e-games club is really cool. What can we do to support you? We would reach out, we would invite students into our group and ask, like, where do you feel least supported and what can we do to support you? Because our students were feeling really helpless too. Over time, our group grew bigger and bigger. More people wanted to be part of it because we were more than just the anti-Moms for Liberty. We were a community that was giving back and being true to our message. And that's how we beat our book bans in our super rural area. But with that being said, it was hard, and it was, there were losses, and we just kept going. We just kept going, and we just kept finding new doors. So we would partner with like our political allies who shared the same beliefs as we did. In my community, I had to get used to having uncomfortable conversations. I'm on a lot of booster clubs, like soccer, dance, volleyball, everything. And I would start talking to those moms and be like, hey, did you see, like, they want to ban the bluest eyes? Like, and they're like, what are you talking? People have no idea what's going on. And some of the conversations were uncomfortable, and we left. This community was completely divided, but where we left off was like an open-ended conversation. Like, I don't know, I know that we can sit next to each other and we can cheer for the same team, and we don't have to avoid looking at each other anymore in the grocery store. So even though we're still tonight fighting book bans again for a different book, I know that what we're doing here is far more than just the book bans.
I really love the aspect you just talked about, because I know like where I live, I have a pretty conservative community, but we've had a couple of things, but we haven't really had outright book banning yet. And so wondering what we can do. And I think what you just said, supporting the teachers, the ones who are doing the good work, making sure you're just like contacting them, supporting them, finding out what they need, supporting the students. We did that with my school. We had a bunch of students in our LGBTQ plus club that were upset about something happening in Ohio. So we gave them the ideas about going to school board and help support them on that. So I think that is amazing. It's not just all about going to school board and pushing back. You can do other things in the community, like you said, to build that support and, make people feel like they have friends and they have a place that they are a part of. So I know that you're now working, because of being with Red, Wine, and Blue, that you're kind of also expanded outside of your area. So how are you helping people organize in other places, or what are you seeing other people doing in their communities?
I actually, right before I came on today, I met with a neighboring school district who had Moms for Liberty for the first time at their school board meeting the other day. They messaged me that night. I had like a few contacts from there, not many. This is a new community to me from Red, Wine, and Blue. And to watch this community come together and the support of the teachers and the staff, it takes one mom. That's all it was one mom was like, hey, I saw your email on something I must have put it on. And she said, I'm really scared. I'm a mother of a young trans child and I don't know what to do. And I said, okay, let me connect you with someone I know. Super Bowl Sunday, we had a virtual meeting. And I love meeting in person, and I would much rather do that, but this was like urgent. I mean, she found out Friday, the meeting was Monday, and it was Super Bowl Sunday. And I live in Pennsylvania, so it was a big deal for us. So we met virtually, and the amount of support from this community for this mom, today I was invited to the GSA club in their school district, and I'll literally cry thinking about it. And when this work is hard, and it is exhausting sometimes, but when you leave a room and like this club has saved their life, and they were so grateful for me, and all I did was just connect them to people who knew each other and knew how to help. And now she started her own Facebook group, and now she has a community to turn to, and she knows she has me, and I had my state director at the time. Anytime I had a question, I would, poor Ron, I would message her all the time. And we constantly talk educational calls, whether they be with Red, Wine, and Blue. One of us were always assigned in my Facebook group, and we still do that, to take educational calls. Like, so we know what's coming, because we know the plan for 2024, and that is to defund our public education. And if it's not happening in your district now, you will see it happen. And if you don't see it in your district, it's happening to your neighbors, and they need your help. So anytime you have an opportunity to get a free education, like the ones that these nonprofit organizations are offering, I would recommend taking it up.
I think one thing that you said that I really love too is like, that you have your contacts in your community. Now you're working in this community, and like you can connect those groups together, and like you're stronger together. And that's a big piece of, finding people with those shared values and building communication between them. And then you're stronger together because you can support each other. I do that locally with the city right north of me. We supported each other through a lot of stuff and made some really cool friends along the way. So thank you so much for joining and sharing. Really appreciate it. Now we're going to chat a little bit about just how to be effective in front of school board. What is it that you need to do? The most important thing out of all of this, and I hope you've learned this from listening to our two speakers, is that you really just need to show up, right? Because if you don't, There's going to be one set of voices in the room, and it's not going to be the voices that share your value. And they're going to be the ones pushing for chaos, for books to be taken away. And, for kids who already feel marginalized, they're going to enforce policies that make it even worse for them in their schools. And that's not what we want to see. So you need to show up so that they are not the loud people in the room. You want to be the counter narrative, right? You want to go on offense for what they are talking about. They're going to try to make it sound like what they're doing is very reasonable. And you need to be there to call it out and just say, nobody agrees with banning books. Nobody wants kids to not feel welcome in their school. That is what this is going on. And your goal is not only to influence the members of the board, but your goal is to also influence your whole community, right? Because like Amanda just said, people don't know this is going on. So you need to be out there talking to the community. People watch the school board meetings. You can clip what you're saying in there. You can make sure to get the word out and really make sure you drive the narrative in your city as well. Before you get started with this, I also want to give you a little bit of confidence on this issue. I know different parts of the country have different dynamics, and where Amanda lives is super red, where I live is kind of moving purplish. Other places are a little bit better, but you are the majority on these issues, okay? Polling has shown that 87% of people do not support book banning, okay? I'm on any issues of race. And I'm sorry, my slides covered up by my Zoom. 87% do not support banning books that discuss race, and 83 do not support banning books critical of United States history. Okay, these are big numbers. That's not even close. Okay, that's a huge number. So there are going to be people who are going to be pushing these issues, but they are the minority. So just remember that when you are going and showing up at school board, that you are very, very, very much in the majority on this. So what can you do to get your school board's attention and to make them aware that you don't want to see book bans, you don't want to see horrendous policies that affect our students going through? So the first thing you can do is, contact them, email, phone calls, postcard, whatever works best in your community. But in order to do this, you need to make it really easy for people, because you can just send an email and say, hey, everybody, let's contact our school board, or you can put that in your Facebook group. They probably won't do it. You need to give them the email addresses. You need to give them a template of what you want them to say. Maybe it's like a little outline with some talking points that they can add in. You don't want them to send the exact same email, because they'll know that and they'll just probably throw it away. But people do want a little bit of guidance. They're nervous even to contact their local officials. So make it really easy for them, kind of hold their hand through it. That's probably the best way to handle that when it's like trying to contact directly to the school board. Now you can also do a social media campaign, which in this day and age is really important because so many people are on social media. It is how we get our information. So coordinate a social media campaign around what's going on at your school board. Maybe this is a great thing to delegate to somebody. Let them run this campaign, making sure you're putting things out on Facebook that your members can share, or maybe you have a public page for your group that you can put this stuff out onto social media that everybody can see right away. The goal is to inform your community, raise awareness, and keep people updated. So this could be as easy as like a personal post that you share a story about why this is affecting you, why this is hurting your child or your family. Maybe a student wants to write a post that you guys can share. Maybe you can maybe someone in your group is good with video. They could clip a video from the meeting, either the school board member saying something pretty outrageous, or maybe an impassioned speech by somebody in your group that you can share online. If there's an article about what's going on, highlight that article on social media. Like I said, it's really the goal is to inform your community. Also with social media, don't presume everybody knows how to use it. So especially things like Twitter, not intuitive. So, you can teach people, you can have a little meeting and teach them how to tweet, retweet, quote tweet. What does all this mean? Figure out everybody's handles so you can tag people. Make a list of the people in your community that need to be tagged, like local officials, big businesses, newspaper reporters, your school district. Like give those out to your members so that they can write effective tweets. If you have someone who can design graphics, cute, make a hashtag. Like there are so many things you can do online for a social media campaign. And then of course you have to go to your meetings. You want to, make your presence known like we just talked about. So you want to not, again, just say, hey guys, let's show up at school board meeting. You want to be a little more effective than that. So yes, create an event in your Facebook group so people might see it, but then follow up with anybody who says, yes, I'm going, and make sure that they have the details. I actually prefer to use something like a sign up genius, like drop a link to a sign up genius in your Facebook group, or if you have an email list, because you can capture email addresses. Facebook doesn't give that to you, so you can capture email addresses so you can really directly communicate, and you can then build a list of people who are interested in this issue, and you can keep emailing them every time there's a school board or something else comes up. So I think it's pretty effective. And then when you get to the meeting, you really want to make sure your board knows that you guys are all there together. You're all on the same side. So whether it's you wear the same colored shirt or you carry a little sign. One of my favorite tips I heard from somebody is that they just went and printed a bunch of stickers. And then when someone walked in, they're running in from work and they're late. They don't have time to go put on the same colored shirt. You just slap on the sticker. It's just very basic things to show that you guys are all there together as a group and unified. They can see the numbers because not everybody's probably going to speak at the school board. But then you do need speakers. So again, lining up speakers, don't just like throw it out there and hope somebody comes. You really need to coordinate and organize who is going to be speaking. What are the topics that you want to cover, and make sure that somebody who's speaking is covering those assigned topics. Have a practice session if people are nervous to speak. That's very true. Or if someone is really nervous, then let them just come to the first meeting and watch. Because number one, they might get really mad, which I've seen happen, and they suddenly stand up to speak, or they at least feel empowered to come back and do it the next time after they've observed it at least once. And definitely you need to familiarize yourself with the procedures at your meeting. Every district is different. Do you need to sign up ahead of time to speak? Are there a limited number of speaker slots? You don't want to show up with this amazing speech ready to go and find out you had to sign up the day before, or they've already filled the 10 spots. Is there a time limit? Can you only speak for 3 minutes, 4 minutes? Know that ahead of time. And also the last thing I always like to know is, when is the speaking part? Is it at the beginning, at the end? Like, just kind of let people know it's going to be at the end. You're going to be here for a couple hours. Just kind of give them a heads up on that. All right, so now we want to talk about some really great ideas to get attention in your community beside going to school board. You formed this group, you're trying to make a difference, you're trying to draw attention. So what are some of the things you can do? And I'm going to have Julie come back and chat through these.
Okay, so we call this our thinking outside of the box. So you can do things like hold a positive event, like a school supply drive. One group even had a diaper drive. Pass out information on the books that they're trying to ban. You can sign a big thank you card for teachers and librarians. I think we heard tonight how teachers and librarians need to be supported in our schools because they are your community members. And it's just not okay that they're getting attacked like this. You can pass out banned books at the meetings. Stock those little libraries with banned books. Students have started banned book clubs. You can highlight books that are being banned on social media and share the subject and stories, and any awards that they've won. You can do yard signs that support your side or the student's side, things like you belong. Wear t-shirts with banned authors and books and wording about the bans. Sidewalk talk messages are very effective. And you can change your profile pictures to you holding banned books. And you can do what we did a couple of years back now. We did a read-in of banned books. And what we did was we went down to the state school board. It was a read-in for accurate education. And we were at our state school board while they were having a meeting. We were outside in the rain for 2 hours. But we sat there and read books by authors of color. And we were very effective because we were, sitting there reading, and the other side was there, and they were loud and they were obnoxious and they shoved people. And it was really, they were really not very well behaved at all. We got a lot of great earned media that day because of that. So, this is a very effective way of being able to, get your point across. And so, there were folks there, we were definitely a very multicultural group. There were, we had different ages there as well. And again, it was very effective. Some folks had a sign for folks to honk as they went by, and people did do that. And, it was just very well, it was very well supported and very well done.
So and one more thing, when you're going in front of school board, you're going to do all these events. The one thing that's important, I'm going to talk about some talking points now for when you do go to school board, but it's really important. And if you have not attended our communication troublemaker training or ever heard Jess McIntosh speak, I am stealing this from her, and you should come to one of her trainings because she's amazing, all about how to really communicate and have these conversations. But one of the biggest takeaways from Jess's training is that you don't want to repeat the disinformation. So honestly, I think it's just human nature. When someone says something outrageous, like we have books of pornography in our school libraries, is you want to go, oh my gosh, we do not have pornography in our school library. But what you're doing is you're basically repeating the disinformation. And what people remember is that salacious charge. So like a couple days later, they'll be like, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, there's some pornographic books in the library. And that's kind of what sticks in their brain. The other thing is, if you start arguing about pornographic books in a library, you're suddenly arguing about what they want to be the truth. You're starting to argue on their terms, and that's not what you want to do. I had a friend who was going to go to school board, and she was talking about grooming and pornography, and I was like, don't say that. I'm like, just take that right out of your speech. So what you want to do is you just want to ignore the disinformation, not repeat it, and just provide an accurate answer about what you want to say, what you believe. I believe that students need to learn accurate history. We can't be teaching them fairy tales. That doesn't prepare them for the future or make them a success in a global economy. All students should feel welcome and accepted at school. No one should be told their stories or their history is inappropriate. You're not repeating the disinformation. You're just repeating what it is that you believe. Okay. So that's just a hint when you're going in there, when you're preparing your remarks or whatever it is that you want to say. So these are some talking points for book bans. I will email these to you afterwards. You do not have to copy them all down now. But really quickly, just basically core values. Every kid should, and I stole some of these for that last thing I just presented, but every kid should feel safe to learn and thrive at school. We're preparing our kids for the 21st century. You need the real history. Call out directly what they're doing. Like I said, don't let them get away with trying to couch this in nice terminology. We are trying to ban books in 2022. There have been calls to ban books like this. This coordinated effort is banning books about Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. That's where we are headed, if they're not already doing it at your school. This isn't about parental rights. This is truly about a group using kids' education to oppose a political agenda. Call out the fact that the books that are being targeted are almost entirely about the LGBTQ plus community or people of color. And what message are we sending to kids in the school who are part of those communities? And what message are we sending to the kids who are not part of those communities if we're saying those books are inappropriate? Individual freedom, right? Everyone always talks about their freedoms. Well, you can decide what's right for your child, but you don't get to dictate what others do or make others live by your ideals. And most of the books that are targeted aren't even assigned. They're simply sitting on a shelf. If you don't want your kid to read it, fine, don't let them read it. But you don't get to take that opportunity away from me as a parent, for me to make those decisions. Patriotism, please take the patriotism back. This is free speech. This is independent thinking. These are literally the ideals of our nation. We are on the right side of this. This is censorship, what they're doing. Own your mom expertise. We know what happens when our kids are told they can't do something. They're going to find a way to do it. That's why banned book sales shoot up when that becomes public. So just, kind of point that out. Flip the frame on who's playing politics. They love to say that the libraries are, passing out this horrible literature, and they have an agenda. They don't. Libraries offer books on all topics, all sides. So they actually are not endorsing anything. It's the book banners who are trying to impose their political views on people. And also definitely point out the link between legislation and books. And what we know is that, there's high rates of depression and suicide among LGBTQ youth. So books are actually things that save lives by seeing themselves in the story, by realizing that they're not alone. So literally by banning books, you are really endangering the lives of children. So it's important to point all of this stuff out. Last final thoughts that I want to share are just to this. Remember, when you go, you're going to hear things that might upset you. You're going to hear people saying things that you are just going to want to tear your hair out, but you need to be the calm face, right? Because really what you're going to hear a lot on the other side is some pretty extreme stuff that, and it could be yelling. They're going to be oftentimes very upset. You want to be the calm side. So if someone is watching that school board meeting and they don't really know what's going on, they're going to look at one side and they're going to look at your side and they're going to be like, that side seems reasonable. I want to be on that common sense side, not this chaotic side. Definitely, we talked about this, reach out and support teachers and librarians. They are in a really bad place with these book bans and things that are, attempts to take books off their shelves. So just let them know you're supporting them, seeing how you can help them. Definitely learn the book review process at your school. Every school should have a book review process. So if someone does file a complaint, usually what happens is they have to say, I read the book, I didn't like this part of the book, this is the problem with the book. And then usually they form a committee that then reviews the books and makes recommendations. But what we're finding is that a lot of schools are just completely not following their own processes. They're immediately going and pulling books from shelves when somebody files a complaint. We've seen, one parent pull 100 books off a shelf in a district before. And so it's really, really important to understand the process and what's supposed to be happening. Most of the time, the books are actually supposed to stay on the shelf until the whole review process goes. And what we're finding is that people are, feeling the principal and the administrations are also in a bad position because this is, a lot of loud voices yelling at them and they don't know what to do. So sometimes they're defaulting to just pulling things off the shelf before review. So just know what your process is so that you can address that with the administration and with the school board. And then watch what other school districts are, what's happening over there. Maybe it's not happening in your district yet, but it's happening next door. That's my example, right next door to me. And so you can watch those school board meetings, right? I mean, everything's online now. You can see what the arguments are because this is very much a coordinated playbook. They are arguing about the same books with the same passages. So if you know what they're saying in the school district next to you, that's probably the exact same argument that's coming your way. So you can really prepare ahead of time for that. All right, you guys, you got this. You heard from Ellen and Amanda. You know that they were not super activists before. They were doing this. They were making a huge difference. So you can do this too. I am going to stop sharing and then let's see if Julie can let me know if there's any questions in the chat. And if you guys do have questions, feel free to drop those right now.
There's been quite a bit of discussion in the chat and things shared. The only thing that I would say is to piggyback on what you just said a few minutes ago. I noticed that some folks wanted copies of the letters that Ellen's group has sent out, and that's great. But I would just caution you to please don't just cut and paste blindly to make those letters, germane to whatever it is that's going on with your school district, number one. And number two, have folks write their reasoning why they're writing, give them like the start of, a sentence or two, and then let them go from there. Because what the other side is doing nationwide is they have a group of things that they're just cutting and pasting. And sometimes the stuff that they're doing that with, it doesn't even make any sense. So, make sure that, our side is more coordinated than that.
Thank you guys so much for coming. Appreciate all of the help and the chatter in the chat. Definitely download the Parent Playbook. It is a very helpful tool to have. Reach out if you guys have questions. Love to be in contact. I will put my email in the chat. It's julie@redwine.blue. I'll do that real quick. Otherwise, everybody have a really great night.